This episode we're going to be talking about the power plant that we're putting in by WJ. I've mentioned before in previous episodes that the vehicle had been LS swapped. I had a 6-liter LQ4 based LS in it originally. Well, originally it had a 4.7 liter valve dropper, but last 2 years we've been running with a 6-liter LS. 6-liter I had was somewhere in the 450, 500 horsepower range. Never had a dyno tested, but it propelled the vehicle quite handily. Another big improvement that a lot of you guys still rocking 4.7s may not realize is the LS, being newer technology, gets dramatically better fuel economy. Not only did I have double the horsepower, I almost had double the gas mileage. Mine was at the point where I was getting 10-12 miles to the gallon at best, downhill with the wind at my back. That was pretty much the best I could ever get with it. 35-inch tires, 373 gears, terrible combination. This time we're going to be running with 456 gears. I got some different axles for it that I mentioned before that we're going to be putting in it. I am running just a Dana 30 in the front and a 44 HD in the rear, stock axles. Just can't put it in the books right now to put 1 tons in it. That's kind of my plan for next winter. If this bad unit right here vaporizes the axles that are presently in it, then we might be forced to do something a little bit sooner. The axles that I have now are open differential axles originally. We're running an Aussie locker, lunchbox style locker in the back, and an Eaton E-locker in the front so we can turn it on and off. We'll see how those hold up. The quadra-drive axles that we've been running in it for the last 2 years have held up to every bit of abuse that 6-liter's put out, which again is double the power the 4.7 ever did. 4.7 HOs are rated at like 465, brand new on a good day. Totally incorrect. 265, brand new on a good day. And like we said, with the combination I had with a 6-liter, 450 to 500 horse easily. But I never broke anything. Could everything be just about ready to break? That's always possible with anything. Sometimes it's just a matter of what's the next oldest part. But the axles that we're running now, I've got high hopes. We'll see. I'll find out what the weak links are. Don't really know how much horsepower that 242 HD can handle either. Does have a slip yoke eliminator kit, so the tail shaft on it is several inches shorter than it was originally, which also makes it stronger. But we'll find out. Again, 1 tons will happen eventually. It's just not in the books for this year. Let's talk about the motor here. This is a GM crate engine. It's a 454 LSX. For those of you who don't know what LSX means, this is a General Motors, what they would call a bow tie block. This is a GM's aftermarket block. It's heavy duty, it's re-strengthened in several different areas, and then it has what they call true priority main oiling. So basically the oil pump feeds the main bearings and rod bearings before anything else on the engine, and that's different than the standard LS engines, where I believe that it may lubricate the cam or the valve train first. I'm not quite sure, but that is a difference with these. It also has a very heavy-duty cast iron block. Yeah, some of you guys are saying, oh, aluminum's better, it's 100 pounds lighter. Yeah, it is 100 pounds lighter. It's not stronger. At 600 horsepower and aluminum LS3 or whatnot, those blocks hold up to infinitely more power than that. But this is how the engine package came. I like the block, it's cool. It's got 6-bolt cylinder heads as opposed to the 4 bolts. They are interchangeable. Any LS heads will bolt onto this motor. Technically, I believe these heads would bolt onto a 4-bolt motor too. You just have the tabs hanging over, but it'd be kind of silly. Everything on this is size-wise on the cylinder heads and induction system is LS7 based. So for instance, this intake manifold did not come with the motor. I think GM used to sell them that way. They used to sell them with a harness and some kind of MSD control box, or pretty much it was just a drop-in, ready-to-go type of a deal. But I had to purchase this intake. I got a smoking deal on it. It's off a Z06 Corvette. which those had LS7s. This one is brand new, has never even been bolted on a motor. It just came minus the injectors and throttle body. We're going drive-by cable. Throttle body these came with was drive-by wire, so we didn't need that. And I plan to go with fuel injector clinic injectors and not factory AC Delco injectors, whatever the Z06 came with. Keep in mind the Z06, even though they're close, the Z06 was 427 cubic inches. This is 454 cubic inches. The other things that go on with the old LSX here is, first of all, let's mention numbers. 627 horsepower, 585 foot-pounds of torque. This thing makes 500 foot-pounds of torque before 3,000 RPMs. So pretty much by the time the torque converter's kicking in, this thing's putting out 500 foot-pounds of torque. So we might find some weaknesses pretty quickly with this unit, but we'll find out. It's part of the game. This has forged rotating assembly, crankshaft, rods, pistons, all forged. It's 11-to-1 compression. With 11-to-1 compression, with aluminum heads and the LS combustion chamber design, you can run pump gas. It's specifically made to be a street engine. And with all that power, this thing still has a 2-year, 50,000 mile warranty on it. So I don't think we'll have any issues, and if we do, it's covered. Anytime you have any kind of big engine problems, usually the weak links show themselves pretty quick. It's not usually at 51,000 miles or whatnot. So hopefully we'll get that all figured out. I don't think we'll have any problem with this. These things have a pretty good reputation. This one here, the build tag on it is 2022. So this is a fresh iteration of that, but this motor's been out for like at least 10 years. GM's offered this motor. This is what we're going with. I'm real excited about it. I surprisingly can't find a lot of videos of other vehicles with this engine. Some short ones here and there, and some Camaros and Chevelles and a couple things. I have found a couple videos with some rock buggies. Suicidal hill climb tube chassis rock buggies with these, and they're frickin' ripping. So I'm pretty excited about it. I want my Jeep to be fast on the street. It's on the street more than it's anywhere else, but it'll have all the power I could ever need off-road. We'll see how it goes. I'm pretty excited about it. This is kind of the whole centerpiece of the build. The vehicle needs to be functional off-road. I've been using it for a couple years, and the whole same suspension and steering setup on a different WJ prior to that. Put thousands and thousands of miles on, hundreds of miles on trails, and my setup has not left me disappointed. So I just want to show you guys all this. Here in a second I can walk you around it, but this is where we're going with. I ran all LS truck accessories up to this point. This has a harmonic balancer. It's Corvette style harmonic balancer, and I think it sets back a little bit further than the truck harmonic balancer. So I'm probably going to have to get a different balancer for it. I'm probably going to continue to run the truck accessories. I don't want to have to switch everything in my whole setup and make that work with Corvette or Camaro accessories. So we'll go with that. Air conditioning's coming. I already have the air conditioner or the compressor and the brackets and everything that all jives with truck accessories, so that's probably the way we're going to go. Rest things to talk about, what we're going to do next with the Jeep. Here this coming week I'm going to be getting my transmission back from the trans shop, and we'll be in a position where we can start putting this all together and getting it ready to go back in the Jeep. In the meantime, I've got to come up with a lot better way to come up with a shifter for the transfer case. I am using the factory WJ shifter. As you guys know, the shifters, both the transfer case and transmission shifter, are all on one unit. I did take one out of a Select Track vehicle, so it has the proper gates and everything for the Select Track transfer case that I'm running in it. Keep in mind that the Overland was originally an all-wheel drive, just had 4 high and 4 low. That stuff's down the road. But I do want to use the factory shifters. Some guys on the LS Swap WJ Facebook pages have used B&M shifters and some other brands shifters, and I want everything I can do for the inside of the Grand Cherokee to be factory. The instrument cluster is going to be different. I've kind of talked about that a little bit. We're using a Holley digital dash. In my case, it's the 7-inch dash. They do make a 13-inch Pro dash that's really badass. It also costs twice as much as a 7-incher, but in my case, I had a buddy that bought a race car, had that dash in it, and he sold it to me for a smoking deal. And well, I like to take advantages of smoking deals, so that's what we're running. I do have some carbon fiber sheeting that I'm going to use to make the bezel inside the original where the instrument cluster would go and where the dash is going to go. We'll do that on a different episode, but I think it's going to be pretty sweet. Past that point, we're going to be putting Dynamat all throughout the whole inside of the vehicle. I want to do everything I can to minimize noise. One thing that's going to be a bit of a challenge, and any of you guys that have LS swapped these WJs already know, is making the exhaust work is quite a challenge, and I haven't seen, at least with what people have posted online or videos of, I haven't seen two exhaust setups the same on any LS swap WJs. So in my case, I have to run at least 1 7/8" primary tube headers. I'm going to have to probably buy a build-it-yourself kit for the headers, which are very, very pricey. And a lot of that's a little bit outside of my skill level, but I'm going to have to find a way to make it work. When I originally LS swapped the Jeep, I literally bought no less than 8 sets of eBay S10 LS swap headers to find 2 that would work. That was the first iteration. Second time around, I went with some center dump headers. They were biased a little bit more front or rear, and of course on the LS's, things are ambidextrous. You know, the header can go on either way, depending on, you know, as far as bolt pattern on the cylinder head. So I ran them with they dumped out more in the front, and one side driver's side had to come around the front of the sump on the oil pan, and both go around through the passenger side before they join together. I did run 3-inch duals all the way to the back to the muffler, so there is ways to make it fit. Even with the rough crunchy cross member, we had to do a little trimming in there, but I was able to fit 2 3-inch pipes side by side through there. So it's going to be something similar with that with the final exhaust, but as far as the headers go, that's going to be a big challenge on this. I have considered Z06 exhaust manifolds. They flow pretty good. They're pretty large ports. The flanges on the bottom of them are oval shaped. I've found a couple companies that make flange plates, so you can at least go that far. As far as creating and building the rest of it, again, I'm getting outside of my skill level. But long story short, exhaust has got to function somehow. We also might move the engine back and up a little bit. On the WJs, one thing you run into is the front of the oil pan and the clearance with your track bar. I've got mine to a sweet spot with, I used a F-body LS pan, of course. It's really, really thin in the front and gives a lot of clearance. I haven't looked into too much what oil pans will work on this. Being a stroker motor, it's got a real long stroke on the crank, and I know that some of the F-body pans don't clear the rods, you know, or the crankshaft. So that part we've still got to figure out. This thing's not going home to the home shop yet until all the cutting and grinding is finished. We've learned some ugly lessons here in the past about having engines in dirty environments, or especially in an environment where you're grinding and cutting, and you know, all that material off your cut-off wheels and your grinding discs, that ends up everywhere, and so does whatever you're grinding off. And it likes to find its way in cracks and crevices. Some cam and crank sensors are somewhat magnetic, and they'll attract some of that in there. It's staying here at work until it's ready to go in and the shop's cleaned out, ready for this phase. Past that point, I got to put the axles in. I've got an IRO axle truss for my 44 rear end. I'm going to put that on the front axle. I can't say that we're going to truss that yet. I have the Trail Forge set up, so I have the Trail Forge track bar, Trail Forge 1-ton steering and everything. And with that setup, you move the mount on the axle from the factory location in the front of the axle to the top of it, and I don't know quite how that would jive with the truss in the front. I do wheel the Jeep considerably. I'm not rock bouncing it and, you know, doing a lot of what I call slip and grip, so my axles are spinning or tires are spinning, then grabbing rock. It's not the kind of environment we have here in Michigan. Though the wife and I do plan to start heading south to Indiana, Kentucky, so, you know, Tennessee and that region, and try to hit some of the more mountainous trails. So far I haven't been in situations where I can see me bending my axle or anything, but you're not there until you're there. So stuff's not broken till it is. So we'll just see how that goes. Other than that, that's pretty much it. We got to put brake lines in it. I have eliminated the ABS control unit. There's no ABS on this vehicle, and there never will be again. There's been quite a few people have done an upgrade where they put a Ram truck master cylinder in, and that gives it it has larger bores and, you know, pumps a lot more fluid when you press the pedal, and then for it to stop a bigger vehicle. And from my understanding, that helps quite a bit, get a little more braking power. Brakes aren't that bad on the WJ, but keep in mind, the WJ's 250 or 150 horsepower, depending on what motor you've got in it. But even with my 6-liter, I really didn't have any problem slowing her down or whatnot. That was never really a concern. But we are going to run all new brake lines throughout. I've got to get some extended brake lines for the front. The rear, I haven't had too much trouble. The way I've had it set up, even with the factory brake hose and the bracket that comes on it, even at full articulation or full droop or whatever in the rear end, it still has a little bit of play in it. So I'm not yanking on that or anything. We got to do some with the fuel system. I do have full AN lines and everything for the fuel system, but with the 6-liter, I was running the stock 4.7 pump. I've seen a lot of other guys in LS swap WJs are running even stock 4-liter pump. I don't know if they're different or not. Never researched it, but this is going to require way more fuel flow. And even with the 6-liter, I had some times on some high RPM, wide open runs that I could watch the fuel pressure start to drop down once it started getting above 4,000 RPMs. And if you guys know, as fuel pressure goes down, so does your air fuel mixture, and you start running lean, and you can burn up a motor pretty damn quick. So we're going to make sure this old girl has every drop of fuel she needs. At one point we had considered going with a fuel cell. It'd be a simple way to go, good aeromotive fuel cell, intake fuel pump, fuel sending unit. Main thing is, I don't want to have to open my tailgate and refuel it through the inside of the vehicle. I want to use the factory fill neck. So I've decided I'm going with the factory fuel tank. Past that point, we may pull apart the sending unit, try to find a way to put a fuel pump in there. That's just not something I've ever had to experiment with, so my fuel pump knowledge isn't very vast. If we have to do an inline or whatever, we're still trying to figure that part out. We're probably going to be doing a tank tuck. If you don't know what the tank tuck is, I think that's something pretty specific to the WJs. That's not something that's applicable to other Jeeps or off-road vehicles. And basically what that is, if you guys don't know, in your tailgate area, of course, where your factory spare tire would go, you've got a 10-12 inch recess there to house a spare tire. And then underneath the back, underneath that spare tire recess, is the fuel tank. So a lot of folks with the WJs, they cut the spare tire area out, it raised the gas tank up that amount. It does two things. Number one thing is, so you have that much more clearance in the rear. Even with 6.5 inches of lift and 35s, I've drugged that skid plate a couple times on the ground and hit a couple things with it. So getting it up there would be nice. If you haven't ever noticed, if you look at the side view of the WJ, especially in the rear of the vehicle, from the bottom of the skid plate under the gas tank to the top of the roof, or the roof rails in fact, you got a lot of vehicle there. Moving that tank up on a visual aspect makes it look a little more slim, that makes it look a little more sleek. Looks really don't have much to do with it. The main thing is having that much more clearance. So we're probably going to be doing that. And again, we got to figure out the whole fuel system thing anyways, but we'll work towards that when I get closer to that point. Otherwise, talked about quietening down the vehicle. We're going to put Dynamat throughout the whole inside of the vehicle on the floor. I'm putting Dynamat on the inside and outside of the firewall. The dash is out, as you guys know from a previous episode. And while that's out, I'm going to take advantage of it. I want it nice and quiet as possible on the inside. Like we discussed, we're going to run air conditioning. That's mandatory, especially here in Michigan. Once it's hot and humid. So that makes for miserable time, especially out on the trails. And we've had, I don't know how it is other places around the country, but we get black flies and deer flies around here. And I've had a lot of situations where we pop into a random trail and the deer flies are just attacking the vehicle. And there's just no way in heck that you can live with that, especially if you have your woman with you or you got long hair. They like to get in your hair and dig right down to your skull. Deer flies are pretty horrible creatures. They probably serve some purpose in nature, but as far as humans are concerned, they're a pest. So windows have got to be up, and we've run into this multiple times. Regardless, I'm old. I need air conditioning, so we'll be running some AC on it. Past that point, we just got to start putting stuff together, get the dash wired and everything for the turn signal indicators and fuel gauge. Those are all things you can do with the Holley system. We talk about Holley, running a Holley Terminator X-Max. That's going to control everything for us. Well, it's going to switch to a Dominator that has a lot more inputs and outputs than this unit. But they also sell another little module you can buy that adds several different IOs to it, and you can operate quite a few things. You can even use that digital dash as a switch panel if you want. In my case, I'm not going to. It's going in the place of the factory instrument cluster. I think I mentioned that I've got some carbon fiber sheeting that I'm going to use, cut out a bezel and house that screen in there. If you're not familiar with the digital dash, they're pretty badass. So if you're in a situation where you're running in any kind of a Holley system, and you can make any background, any gauge cluster arrangement, you can add so many things on there and completely customize it. They're pretty badass. I don't have any video footage or anything to show at the moment, but digital screen and totally interactive, and you can put photographs for your background or anything, you know, and gauges any shape, size, warning lights, you name it. You can run pretty much everything through there. They're pretty badass. Other than that, we just got to get her together. I'm going to try to have an episode for everything we're doing. We got a lot of sealing and seam sealing and painting and stuff to do from all our frame stiffeners and all the grinding and welding and everything that we did in the last couple episodes. We got to get that all sealed up the best we can. You know, do everything I can to eliminate as much intrusion as possible. It gets wet, it gets dirty, it gets muddy, you name it, and we just want the vehicle to last a long time. If you have any questions, please ask. If you have any suggestions, other than the engine that we're running and a few things, there's nothing really carved in stone we're doing with the vehicle. 1-ton axles, as I've mentioned multiple times, would be the smartest thing. A lot of folks go with the axles, and I do believe in building your foundation before anything else. But in this case, this is the route we took. And I really don't know the limits of the factory axles. We're going to find out. Past that, it's just go time. It's getting to be spring here. Even though it's almost April, I woke up to a little bit of snow and ice and everything, and then it snowed like crazy, and since then, if I showed you outside, there's barely any snow left. We had about 3 inches of it here 2 hours ago, but that's Michigan. You don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. Walk around a tree, you'll find something else. Again, any questions, suggestions, anything, I'd like to interact with you guys. The WJs are one of the cool new things coming along for all us Jeepers. They're not new, obviously, but they're just coming down in price and getting out there to where a lot of us can get our hands on them. In my opinion, they're far superior to an XJ. No offense, guys, but after I test drove a couple XJs last year when I was thinking about adding a vehicle to my fleet, I couldn't justify it. Around here where I live, XJs are either rotten and broken in half, or about to be, or they just don't exist. Other parts of the country, that stuff's a dime a dozen, you know, and I realize that. But the WJ is quiet, it's really cushy, it's got a lot of feature functions to it, and I mean, I got the first one I had by chance, and I got it from a customer with a blown motor. And I wasn't interested in Jeeps or anything like that, and put a motor in it. The wife and I went up north, got bored, hit some seasonal roads, and we're just amazed what that thing went through with no lift and Michelin street tires. And then by the time it got some BFGs on it, a couple inches of lift, and a little more lift, and a little more this and that, I have been stuck maybe 2 or 3 times. And those were in some pretty treacherous situations. Broke through some ice once. I was pretty damn stuck. But other than that, I've been through sand, mud, snow, dirt, up steep hills, and through all kinds of crazy situations that have had my wife almost passing out in fear. And that thing just keeps on going through. I've had 7 of them, and not one of them's disappointed me yet. So I want to do everything I can to contribute to the WJ community and the Jeep community. Any of you guys watching, go out and do something with that thing. There's a lot of information, a lot of their pitfalls, you know, there's a few similar things that happen with them. They're pretty easily taken care of. Broken wire in the door jamb, or death wobble can be a little tricky sometimes, but that happens on any vehicle with straight axle front end, you know, and sometimes with independent front suspension. That's can be a Jeep thing sometimes, and I've been down that road. But it's all individual situations that maybe come. Again, any comments, questions, throw them my way. There's going to be some swag coming soon. You know, we got to represent our WJ brethren. And past that point, just stay tuned. Please keep coming back. Please subscribe, please like my videos, turn on your notifications if you like. I'm trying to put out a video a week, and I'm going to try to continue to do that till the project's done. Once the project's done, we'll have some more videos of us using it and abusing it. So be safe, be nice to everybody, pray for great weather, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.